All right, I'm going to call to order a regular meeting of the Wellington Board of Selectmen. It is Monday, July 19th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would stand and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. For those of you who are joining us online, we do have a couple of folks in the room. And I will ask everyone so that we stay in accordance with the new rules of hybrid meeting, that we do our best to identify ourselves. I apologize, we don't have our name signs. It's one of those days. So if you're on camera, we're going to ask you to identify yourself. And at least the first time we speak, it's Selectmen can refer themselves. All right, the next item is approval of minutes. In your packet, you should see minutes from the July 6th meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Motion by Selectman Boritz. Is there a second?
I will second.
Seconded by Selectman Blessington. Any discussion? No discussion. All right, I will ask for a roll call vote. I'll note that Cheryl Mitchell is acting recording secretary, filling in for us until the administrative assistant position has been filled. So I want to thank Ms. Mitchell. So Cheryl, if you could just by name in whichever order you so choose.
Okay. Blessington,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Boritz. Aye.
Motion carries. The next item is present to speak. If you are in the room, if you raise your hand, if you're on camera, you can either use the raise hand feature or unmute yourself. Identify yourself for the record, and I ask that you limit your comments to 2 minutes. Is there anyone present to speak? We don't see anyone on camera tonight. All right, if no one is present to speak, you will have an opportunity later in the meeting, and I know some folks who are on are going to speak to some items on the agenda as well. All right, we'll move forward to correspondence. You will see one correspondence. It did come in at the end of the day on Friday, but I wanted to make sure that so it was not in your packets that you received online, but I did include it in your packet here. So you can take some time to look at that, and we can discuss this at a future meeting. Like I said, it came in Friday afternoon. Sent to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance.
We will have this on the agenda.
I think we should put it on the agenda for next week. I certainly read it quickly on Friday, thought I'd have more time to digest it. But once again, storms took up the better part of my time this weekend. So move along to First Selectman status report. No real changes. We're still waiting for the state with the steep grant. Troy, have you?
Yeah, I haven't heard.
Yeah, and we haven't talked much other than storm-related damage. The school building committee, the only thing that's really new there, the school building committee voted to move to the Board of Finance to ask them to allocate funds that were put into CIP for consultants for the school building committee. The Board of Finance in a 3-3 vote voted no to having the selectmen call a town meeting, which gives the townspeople an opportunity to be fully engaged in that conversation and the use of those funds. So I'm a bit disappointed in that process. The school building committee will regroup and potentially make the ask again. So I think we'll see that again. Their meeting for this week was canceled. The next meeting is the first Wednesday in August. On the COVID front, we're seeing a little uptick in COVID across the state and the nation. I had some conflicting reports. One showed 262 overall cases cases, which would be an increase of 2 in Wellington. My Eastern Highlands report said 3. So we have had 2 or 3, not a significant number, but certainly an uptick after weeks of seeing no positive cases. So we ask folks to still remain cautious, consider being vaccinated if you're 12 years of age or older. On staffing front, you all know we had several vacancies. I will mention that Joan Horace, who was our assistant assessor, has agreed to work on a part-time per diem basis to fill in to help out in that office. So we appreciate that. She's also willing to stay with us to help train a new hire in that office, again, for a limited number of hours per week. So we appreciate her assistance there. Since our last meeting, our Parks and Rec director gave notice. Her last day is this Friday, the 23rd. I will share with you that she's leaving to go to a neighboring town where she will make $18,000 more a year. So once again, we are not a Mansfield, I recognize that, but it is currently a one-man show. No department should have a single point of failure. That's what we have in Parks and Rec. And we really, once again, need to take a look at our overall structure. Not just in Parks and Rec, but we've had the same conversation in multiple departments, including Parks and Public Works. We have hired an interim. Sophia Milos is going to act as an interim assistant rec director to help fill the gap until we can hire someone new. Sophia is currently a lifeguard at Hall's Pond. She's worked with us for a couple of years now, and she's willing to come in and help. So there'll be some hours she'll do here in the office, a limited number of hours that will help with communications, answering the phone, responding to emails. We are working with the Parks and Rec Commission to help fill those gaps. Any questions so far? All right, now we're going to get to the good stuff. Public Works. Troy is Public Works Director is with us tonight.
Not much going on, right?
Not
Troy?
much.
No, it's pretty quiet on the
Yep.
front there. Well, basically, we've been filling in washouts and fixing roads. So I have some rough estimates. Right now, we currently have about 25 major damaged roads, and that's including washouts, basically. Since the last storm, we used 534 tons of 3-inch minus gravel, 131 tons of 1¼ stone, and 21 tons of 1¼ process, and about 20 tons of riprap. The storm over the weekend, just today alone on Mason Road, I had some contractors hauling in gravel. We used about 900 tons of 3-inch minus, and it's still not complete. We still have the other side where the pipe collapsed that needs to be filled up. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done on the dirt roads along with the other roads. So there's paving that needs to be done. Once the holes are filled in, we still have to go back and cut all this stuff out, patch it in, and go from there. So it's going to be some time.
So when you wrote this report up, Troy, this was last week's storm.
Week, yes.
Do you have a rough estimate? And I know you're meeting with some contractors tomorrow morning about what last week's storm could potentially cost us in total.
Just the gravel just by itself was about $8,000, and that wasn't including trucking fees. And we can't haul that all in with just our trucks. Currently, we have 2 trucks at the garage right now. One's having a piston put in it, and the other one had an issue with its brakes. So we only have 2 of our out of our 4 trucks working right now on, so we had to bring in contractors.
If we had all 4, would we still be able to get everything done with only 4 full-time
No.
crew?
We need more manpower, unfortunately. I've said it before, but it's hard to do. It takes a whole crew to fix one road. By the time you put somebody in a truck, a machine, a guy on the ground, or even 2 guys in a truck, a guy on the ground and a guy on the machine, that's your whole crew for the day. So we picked our biggest spots, trying to work all over town, but it's hard. I mean, it's get emails constantly of this road, that road, this road. We're working as fast as we can to do what we can with the crew that we have.
And how do you prioritize where you begin?
safety issue. If the road is completely, as best as we can, had the depth of it, the width of it, what it is. I know Daleville School right now is a huge priority. That'll be taken care of tomorrow, but our dirt roads are in bad shape. It's bad.
When we get to Tropical Storm Elsa, we'll give you a little bit more of an update and give you some specifics. We'll give you some, can we talk some specifics about the storm? Okay.
And I just want to say, last weekend, the fire department came out and helped us. I want to, say thank you to those folks that came out. They cleaned off catch basins. It was greatly appreciated. We can't be everywhere in town. They did a wonderful job. And if they see a catch basin or anybody in front of their house that's got some leaves on it, please go out there and help clean it off.
It's an all hands on deck.
It's an all,
situation,
yes,
yeah.
yeah.
All right. Old business. I moved old business before new business. We typically do it the other way around, but some of these items, one specifically will be reflected in the call to town meeting. So item A is discussion of the assistant business manager position and then the treasurer we talked about. I'm gonna make a motion that we table this discussion till our next meeting.
Second.
Right, seconded by Liza. Discussion. I just have not had time to prepare. I was not able, I wasn't in the finance office at all today. So I know Donna had some changes she wanted to make, and we have not been able to get to that information. So I'm going to move this. All right, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. The unanimous vote does not require a roll call. Thank you. Item B, ARPA funds. At our last meeting, we voted to spend ARPA funds. I spelled out all of the items we were going to use, went into discussion about the total. Folks, I made an error in the math somewhere, whether it was typing it in or my addition, it was off. So when I was preparing for the Board of Finance meeting, I realized that the dollar amount was off. So I went to the Board of Finance, spoke with Donna. Donna said, because we had gone through all the items and given the detail, you may not see it in your folder again, I apologize. I gave the detail on the dollar amount, but the bottom line didn't add up. She felt that it was okay to move forward to the Board of Finance. And then at this meeting, prior to the call of the town meeting item, that we correct our motion. And if for some reason that didn't go through, then I would change the call the town meeting. So I'm going to make a motion to correctly ask for expenditure of $123,500 in ARPA funds. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay, discussion. So this was, I had said 92,000, so I recognize this was significantly off from what we voted on, but it was still the same items. The meeting room equipment in this room, the hybrid room equipment, additional air purifiers, the concrete and cleaning of the basement where air handler is, air conditioning units at the senior center, and additional air purifiers for the Old Town Hall. So the items we went through and discussed and agreed upon did not match the dollar amount. I gave you the exact dollar amounts, but the bottom line, if we had done math here in the room, we would have figured it was wrong. So I
So we should all
apologize.
just be a tiny bit embarrassed. that we
I am
didn't notice.
completely embarrassed, as was, so I immediately went to speak to Donna when preparing the minutes for the Board of Finance meeting, to say, should we hold this off? But again, because we went through in detail and gave dollar amounts in our meeting, she felt that as long as their motion went through, we correct our motion and the two would align. And the Board of Finance did make the recommendation to expend the $123,500. As proposed.
After all that, this is here in the 123.5
Yes,
should have been,
we said 92 last week.
we said, we did.
We
okay.
did. The items were the same, but the dollars did not align. And so embarrassed, absolutely.
None of us.
Not
really
not
math
infallible. The dollar, I don't know, the dollar amount could have come from my many notes. So if we continue on with that, it will match the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance meeting and then prepare for the.
So do we have to go back to the Board of Finance again?
No, they approved this dollar amount.
Okay.
So it would be us lining up with them and everyone aligned. I wouldn't want to go to town meeting and to the Board of Finance if we didn't agree on the same thing. All right, so the motion is to correctly ask for an expenditure for $123,500. All right, roll call vote, please.
Moritz,
Aye.
Wachensky,
Aye.
Lessington.
Aye.
Thank you. Again, I apologize for that. All right, new business, Tropical Storm Elsa update. So Troy gave you a quick overview of what we spent. We can give you an idea of where some of the major issues were from that storm, which are very different from this storm. Troy touched on it a little bit because of our incredibly small crew. Troy had to pull a transfer station employee who works part-time transfer station, part-time public works to work with us last weekend. The crew did work. I guess it's not even last weekend, we're in a new weekend. So 2 Saturdays ago, they worked Saturday and Sunday. And again, it was a matter of safety on the majority of the roads, and which is why they were out there working. So I want to thank our crew for their long, hard hours. It's summertime. Some of these folks either on vacation or preparing to go on vacation and came into work. When we didn't have enough manpower to get eyes on every road, we called in both fire departments. They answered the call. And as Troy said, they went out and we sent them out with a list of roads in sections. They've reported back anything that we may not have seen yet and cleaned off catch basins, which was necessary so that the standing water in a lot of places could continue to flow. With the amount of water we saw, it was pushing not just water, but debris. And so those catch basins were full and we wanted to get rid of any standing water. So they were integral in that. And I want to thank all those volunteers that assembled at Public Works and hit the ground running. Troy, can you give us an idea of some of the major areas of concern from the tropical storm?
Scofield, the bottom of Scofield took a pretty bad hit. I'm coming up on the left-hand side. Fermier was washed out pretty bad. Nicklick Extension, is it?
Yeah, Polster Road.
And Polster Road, that was washed out really bad. Liska, half the road on Liska was down into the brook. Jared Sparks down by that, I think it's Bluebird Farm there, I believe. Those both sides of that hill were pretty damaged. There was a spot on Velaz Road that was damaged.
Moose Meadow
Yeah,
Road,
Moose Meadow Road. still
Turnpike,
has
I'm
water.
sorry, Turnpike Road
Turnpike.
and
yeah.
Old Town
And Old
Road,
Town Road.
pretty significant. Liska Road, we're working, it's in CIP. And CIP pushed off the engineering dollars for that project into the operating budget. So we'll be working with Carl, our engineer, to get the engineering to begin that project. Everything he discussed with us at CIP that could happen to that road if we had a flood happen to that road. It's a dead end road, so they have one way out. So that's one of the main reasons our crew came in. It wasn't as simple as, putting some cones up and letting it wait until Monday. We needed access to a road so folks could get in and out and emergency equipment could get in and out. We did have one home that their driveway was pretty far, the portion of their driveway that was inaccessible was pretty far in on their property. And the fire departments made contact with them. I spoke with them because there was a point where we couldn't get in and out, but we worked to find other ways into their property or get them out in the event they needed to. So I just outreach to some of these folks to know, you're not stranded here, and if you need to get out, we will get you out. But once again, all of our EMS was, they rose to the challenge as they always do in Public Works. I can't say enough about the hard work our crew did in that first storm. This storm was not a tropical storm, but it was fast and furious on Saturday late afternoon and then overnight. If you woke up and were in and around the Scofield Road area, all of the stone they had put in the bottom of Scofield Road from Tropical Storm Elsa was at the bottom of Scofield Road into Route 32 on Sunday morning. It was a lot. Mason, you want to talk about the highlights of this
Yeah,
storm?
that seems like that side of town, Daleville School, Cowles, Parker, Mason, the dirt part of Mason really took a beating. That pipe basically, the pipe's still there, but the water washed out the road. Probably 12 feet wide, the width of the road is completely gone.
We measured 4 3/4 inches of rain from Saturday afternoon through into Sunday morning.
Yeah.
That's more than I think I've ever seen anywhere around here.
And
And
it
it
was,
came down so fast.
Yeah.
It just didn't, it wasn't over 24, it was over a matter of hours.
Yeah, the first one was 2.5 hours. That was about 4 1/4 inches, and then we got another ½ inch later on that night, so.
yeah, that was an all hands on deck. I had been with my family, saw something on social media, said, let's get in the car and go investigate a power issue. Got a call from Troy to meet him at Mason Road, to find, half of the road cut out, and the middle of the road had about 4 inches of road left, and we just stood there and watched it fall in a raging river through there. So the folks through there saw more water than I think they've ever seen at one time. So the dirt part of Mason Road between 75 Mason, we have the closure back farther. We have the closure starting at the dirt, but from 75 Mason to the pavement, can still access the road. From 75 Mason to Daleville School Road is completely closed. You cannot pass. There's the hole in the center of the road. We'll talk about this morning.
Yeah, well, just one more thing, that if people see a road closed sign, as much as they want to be interested in see that, they're there for a reason. And that water was raging, and I happened to be there when a family came down with 2 little kids. The kids ran right past the sign. I tried to stop them. I told the parents, and finally they stopped. And I was like, that water, I mean, somebody could have been seriously hurt. I know everybody wants to see it, but road closed signs mean that for a reason. People need to respect that. If there's cones on the edges of the road or cones by power lines, they have to read, there's caution there. So please be aware of that.
Yeah, I mean, we had folks riding their ATVs down there, their, personal farm equipment. It's not an invitation to drive down the road. I don't know how much more we can stress. So individually, I will ask you to encourage folks to honor that sign. What they don't know is I was standing on the road pretty far back, and the center of the road looked like it was fine. What I wouldn't have known if I'd walked over it, thinking it looked okay, was that it was only 4 inches, and walking over it may have caused it to collapse, and someone could have been seriously injured. And we close it for safety. We don't close them because we want to, and they work hard to open them as soon as possible. So, but this morning we met with our engineer out at Mason Road.
And he recommends that we put a box culvert in there. 2 ways: we can either keep it the way it is or put it more on an angle, so the water flow is straight instead of creating a pool, and it creates turbulence in it. That's how basically it wipes out everything. And then he said we could put some more drainage on that road and then pave it down past there. That's what he recommends. In 1993, I guess they went through this issue. There was a dirt road committee. They stopped it, but there's certain things that should be paved. Even on the next part of Mason going up past the last driveway, that should even be paved. There's catch basins there. Catch basins and dirt really don't work together, but that road should be paved up to the last driveway to create those hills. You wouldn't see those issues. It was done with some curbing and pavement on those roads.
Comments, questions, concerns?
You can open up a fight there,
But there's, and I don't want to say, I hope nobody gets offended on this. The town spends thousands of dollars every year where they can pave the road and I know it could be historical or they don't want to put it through their road, but you're spending money every year to maintain dirt roads, grading them. They're paying to clean in the wintertime, all that stuff. So we got to catch up we're in 2020 now, we're 2021. We need to move up a little bit. And it doesn't mean the whole road needs to be paved, but certain sections of it should be addressed.
We did have a resident on Mason Road who could not access the road. I'm thankful that they had access to the property next to them. They happen to own both pieces, and there is a driveway, so they were able to get out on the other side of the washout. There was probably a foot and a half between their driveway and what appears to be solid road. I don't feel like it's very stable, so they couldn't drive out that way. And they were very concerned about that. But again, they had access the other way, or we would have worked with EMS in other ways to make sure they could get off of their property. But Carl had the conversation, we talked about this in 1993, is that, you know, we're spending so much money on a road that with the grade of the road and the same issues we've had, and I'll give you Saturday was an incredible amount of water in a short period of time, and it's not the norm. But there is argument, and you're gonna see me, myself and Troy begin to advocate for maybe a portion of that road. I wish I could get the pictures up here on the screen for you all to say that it's important.
I've seen, down there, but 1995, I think, is the last time we had a flood like this. I don't think we've ever had anything this bad since then. So, I don't know,
We do every winter though, we have this issue with flooding whenever we get a snowfall and then a snow melt with frozen
yeah,
ground.
but, I mean, flood like washing roads, washing
Yes.
completely roads out and all that.
Yes, all of these issues, however, related in the fact that our roads in some areas are just not optimal, right? And so, and I live on off of one of them in Village Hill, like if you're driving up there, there's a river on that road right now that kind of wasn't there before. And that happens every time we have a snow melt too, and then a refreeze, and then we have ice issues on the end of that road. So we're not talking about a new issue. This is definitely a more severe experience with the weather that we've had, but we've been having issues with our roads and our poor drainage in different ways for ever since 1995, and probably before 1995 as well.
Forever.
Forever, yes.
You're not gonna have perfect roads, and of course, when you get weather like this storm here, it'll almost be what they call a 100-year storm, right?
You almost be, yeah, basically.
And we are not prepared for a 100-year storm in some of our areas, and that's what Carl's suggesting we get ourselves to, is the plans he's talking about are for a 100-year storm, and we're just not there. Liza, to your point, in 2017, when I took this seat and began working, boy, was I surprised to find a CIP request. And every year, if it's resubmitted, you're asked to put the year it originally went on the plan. There are two roads that simply said 1990s. We believe it goes back to at least 1990. There have been folks in the selectman's office, so many selectmen before myself, asking, and many public works directors asking for funding for Village Hill and Scofield Road. We know there's drainage problems. Scofield Road has no drainage in a large section of that road, and we saw the effect of it today. So now it's running through people's property. Our residents pay taxes. They deserve roads that are properly constructed, properly maintained, and it's our duty. At some point, we ask and we ask and we ask. We need to put these requests directly to townspeople and let them say whether or not they support funding these dollars. We cannot keep kicking the can down the road. It's our responsibility to them to get these projects funded. And I'm 30 years of pushing two particular roads, and the work we know need done is unacceptable. We have a lot of folks that live up in that area. If we continue to get rain in the amounts that we're getting through the rest of the summer into the heart of hurricane season, we're in real trouble. And what have we gotten them? Have we kept our mill rate low? Absolutely. Have they gotten the proper care for some of their roads? Absolutely not. Our public works is doing the best they can with the budget that they have. Troy has come to us time and again for more manpower, that his department is understaffed. We supported that and pushed forward for an additional man and a half this year, and budgets were cut, and he received funding for no extra folks. And you know, it's, we have to hear the professionals that we have run our departments. We got to hear them, and we have to start to fight for them. And so you're going to hear me be a lot more vocal. We cannot wait, and I'm not sure at what point the townspeople are not going to begin to get angry, and their voices need to be heard, and we need to be their voice first, and then put these conversations to townspeople.
You realize, of course, that in order to do the roads the way you would like to have them done, the way that they should be done, would not be a matter of just kicking up taxes, mill rate and doing it. It would be a matter of bonding
That is correct.
for a head and a huge amount of bonding.
It's getting bigger, John.
I'm agreeing with you here, but I'm saying that, you know, we don't really talk about bonding to do these roads, and we'd have to start, and if we talk about that, once again, it's still bonded on the library through 2027. So we have to take that into account too. So maybe we should start talking about it, but we're gonna have to talk about real costs.
Yeah, I can tell you at CIP, the conversation comes up every year. A conversation about a bond goes into year 5, which is folks seem to be content with where things just go to die. That's not the right method. And so, yes, if that means we have to start bonding, we have to start properly maintaining some of these roads. We've known there's a drainage issue for at least 30 years. At least 30 years. It's just, it's not acceptable. I'm going to begin to be a lot more vocal about it, and I hope there's support from the selectmen to properly address these issues. We need to. We're their voice, and I want to hear from folks. If you're on social media and you see some of those, I don't read everything that's out there. I can't be in every place, but these people live on Village Hill. They live on Scofield Road. They know it needs to be addressed. They know it's been years, and who's listening to them? We can ask, it goes to CIP, it's get pushed down the road. We need to put it to townspeople and see if they agree. If they agree with the dollar amount, we don't even give them the opportunity to put it in a current budget for them to say, no, we can't afford that. No, we're not going to do that. We need to hear from folks. So, you know, maybe it's time for some public meetings where they get to come out and we hear their concerns specifically on these road issues. Because every time there's a storm, whether it's a big snowstorm or a rainstorm, those are the areas of concern, and we've known about them. And not just us, this goes long before us, but we're here now, so it's our, in my opinion, it's our job. It's my soapbox for there. Comments, questions about the storm? I will tell you, I did this weekend, we did declare an emergency. And I signed a declaration. We worked out of the EOC and to manage what we had. Our crews once again this weekend worked Saturday and Sunday to address some of the minor issues and closed off Mason Road, but they had to address things on the 44 end of Mason Road. We had, I believe, 3 driveways that folks could not get out of because the gap. So our public works worked to fill in those just enough to maintain so that they could get out or an emergency vehicle could get in. So when Troy talks about prioritizing when we meet in the EOC, those are the things that we went through, making sure that we could get to people could get to us. So and listen, Facebook is it's a good and a not so great. It's an opportunity for us to get information out quickly to folks and for folks easily to reach us. And sometimes they can put eyes on something faster than we can see and have people out there. So I appreciate some of those, you know, calls for areas of concern. And if you put them on the town's Facebook page, you can assure that they're seen and addressed for sure.
We had a problem with our phones right at the Public Works Garage, and we're still having some issues. They're supposed to come out again tomorrow, but if I didn't return somebody's phone call or it's all like static, I apologize for that. I'm trying my best, but sometimes you can't understand anything. So that's, people don't think I've returned their phone calls. I'm trying, but the phones have been messed up. So that's.
I'll say if you can't get Public Works, they can always, and we'll check I checked that messages here. There were none this weekend. they can always call the selectman's office. So phones are great until they don't work. We did during Tropical Storm Elsa, open the EOC and work with in person, once again with our partners from Eversource. So we had an in-person liaison, and this year they had a public safety individual who works directly with our public works. And so we had no power outages during Tropical Storm Elsa, just a lot of road washouts. But it was a great opportunity for myself, Troy, our emergency management director, to be in the room with them and make sure the information they had was correct. They had a lot of incorrect information. So we were able to adjust some things and work with them in person. So that worked well. And so I'm appreciative that Eversource sent their liaisons out. And I think they heard a lot of the concerns from Tropical Storm last year and addressed them. Any additional comments, questions? All right. Next item, tax refunds. In your packets.
Just one, yeah.
Just a one. So I will move to refund William F. Griffin $11.28 on a certificate of correction.
Second.
Seconded by John. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimous. Next item, tax waiver or reduction. I know we have some folks from the Conservation Commission on with us. You should be able to unmute yourself, Mr. Anderson. In your packet, you should see the email from Peter Anderson, Chairman of the Conservation Commission, asking us to consider a request from the Talmadge Estate on property taxes on the piece of property that the town is looking to acquire with an open space grant from DEEP. Mr. Anderson, do you want to speak to this item?
Yes, I'll just mention briefly here. We've been keeping the Talmadge family apprised of our progress with the grant and the town's intent to, at this point, to purchase their property. It has been delayed considerably, as you know, as the grant timeline has been pushed back by the state. So when we apprised them of that last, the pushback that came by, which may push the possible purchase out into 2023, they responded that yes, they would still like to see the property go to the town. They would like to see it preserved by the town and added to their previous Talmadge tract. But in return for the delay, they thought it reasonable to request a tax waiver or abatement as compensation for delaying the purchase and the ability for them to gain some profit from the sale of their estate. You know, how the mechanics of this would have to be worked out by tax collector, assessor. It would obviously, I think, have to be worked into the purchase and sale agreement, which is the next thing we're working on, whereby that if for some reason if an abatement or waiver were agreed upon, it would need to be worked into the purchase and sale agreement, so that if the sale didn't take place, then they would be responsible for the taxes. The decision on whether to grant this is beyond the Conservation Commission's pay grade, so we'll leave it to you to debate that issue.
All right, I see some other members of your commission on. I don't know if either Kathy or Carol wanted to speak to this. I did speak with the assessor to kind of get some insight and input. Again, the decision is up to the Board of Selectmen, but spoke to them to discuss our options. And what we talked about is we could waive it all together. The risk there is if the property doesn't, if we aren't awarded the grant, then we're out the amount of tax they would have paid. So if we were to waive that right now, that's the risk, is whatever current tax bill is, that's what the town would stand to lose. The other option is to make an agreement that a tax waiver would be contingent on the sale, and that we would be willing to waive any interest accrued. So if the sale did not go through, they would then pay the taxes owed, but we would waive the interest that would accrue from them not paying them currently. Or they would pay the taxes, and any refund due would be worked into the purchase and sales agreement. That's no risk to the town. They paid. If it doesn't go through, we receive the taxes on it. So those are kind of our options in a nutshell. They pay the taxes, and then if it goes as normal and has nothing to do with it, we put it in the sale, or we make some additional agreement, or we waive the taxes altogether. So it's us weighing the risks. If we put this in the purchase and sales agreement, they would then be responsible to pay the taxes due currently. And then if they vote on either direction, as part of that agreement. That way there would be no interest accrued, therefore there'd be nothing in that manner to waive.
I recall, and this was years ago, that a question came before the Board of Selectmen. Somebody had, for whatever reason, on the taxes, felt that it was unfair that they should have to pay the interest.
Mhm.
And they asked to have that waived. And the assessor at that time was here telling us, state law says you cannot, interest cannot be waived ever. So I don't know what happened there. I don't know if that's was in effect, still in effect, or whatever.
They don't have the authority to waive them. There is a point where they have to collect them, where the selectmen could make those agreements. I think it gets dicey, right? Where so that we're picking and choosing, which I'm not a fan of, which is
Well, I'm
why.
not a fan of that, but what I'm saying is in this particular case, the assessor said we did not have the authority
Right.
to do it.
Yeah.
Get at least a opinion.
That's always been my take on it. I can see that our tax collector is on this call. I would ask her to weigh in. When the assessor and I spoke on Friday, she was unfortunately not in the office. So she can speak to us.
Can you just repeat the question? I was in the middle of something else.
Absolutely. So the question is, where do we stand with being able to waive interest accrued? So if we were to waive the taxes contingent upon sale, or say that we would waive any interest fees, so they don't pay them now, but if the sale, if we're granted the grant, which is, then the sale could go through at that point, because all of this funding is contingent on being awarded the grant. And we said we would waive any fees that occurred. Do we have that ability?
I think the selectmen, Board of Selectmen is the only one that has the availability to waive anything. I myself cannot. Anything in statute says I have to, I don't have the authorization to waive anything. I do think there is part of a statute 12-148 possibly, don't quote me on that, but I believe the selectmen are able to waive portion due to certain circumstances, but I'd have to find out what the actual circumstances are.
Thank you. I asked any of those members of the Conservation Commission in the past, we purchased the first part, another part of the Talmadge estate, right, which is what we're trying to take additional use to. In those contracts, was there similar language regarding the taxes at that point?
I don't, There was. I don't recall that there was in any case.
Kathy?
Kathy has,
No, for both of those prior purchases, when we went for the grants, the residents that were selling the parcels did not ask for a tax abatement of any kind, so it was not a concern at that point. But in this case, they are waiting a lot longer than we anticipated because of Deep's kind of holding up the grant round. And we're asking them to wait quite a long time. So I guess they're concerned about having to pay taxes. In the meanwhile, I mean, if they go forward with a purchase and sales agreement, they'll be waiting quite a while and have to pay taxes on something maybe they could have sold somewhere else earlier. So
We're talking about $1,484.22. So let's say we made a motion to waive contingent on the sale. They would then accrue the interest if the sale doesn't go through. So, you know, they didn't pay the taxes now, the interest would be there. Or we could waiver on it. So we really need to the risk in any of this is two things to me: setting some kind of precedent, which I think is important to take on, and then we're talking about almost just shy of $1,500, or we not make that decision and put it into the purchase and sales agreement, and they would then be responsible for paying the tax.
Erica?
Yes, Carol.
Yeah. One of the options would be for them to pay the taxes as they're due and to be reimbursed. I don't know if that would satisfy them or not, but that's.
And that would be written into the purchase and sales agreement. So
And
that's how they pay them, and then in that agreement would be then getting them back. And so they would meet their tax obligation, but as part of a purchase and sales agreement, refunded those tax dollars. Had this grant open, I know originally you were expecting it to be in the early part of the spring that this would have opened. And now it's not until August, September.
well, the grant is due at the end of September, and then it's going to take them 6 months to review. And then after that, it may take several other months for the governor and the Deep Commissioner to make the announcement of the awards. And then we still have to do a survey and complete some paperwork before Deep releases money. We do have the option, if the town wanted to, once we put the application in and we hear about the awards, for example, next summer, and so we're confident we'll be getting an award, we could get the survey done and then close before receiving the state funds if the town chose to do that. So we could maybe rein it in for 6 months earlier, make the closing prior to getting the actual state funding.
So our request now is whether or not we waive or reduce a reduction of the taxes also.
I'm not sure about the reduction. Again,
What would be equitable?
that was what I was talking about earlier was the interest, which I think we cannot, I don't know if that gives us the authority to reduce taxes as well. That didn't come up in that prior.
Yeah, so from discussions with our assessor, and Janice is saying to you, she believes the same thing, we're the only authority that can do that. But again, it does set a precedent for when do we do that? What criteria are we using? What circumstances do we believe is warranted for that? Because others might argue why they should not have to pay interest or why they may have paid late. And it may not be that we were looking to purchase that property, but they may feel as their reasons are valid. So there's some concern I have in making such a request. I would lean towards the putting language about it into the purchase and sales agreement, and that they would at this point satisfy their tax obligation. If we make that decision tonight, it means that if they pay now, they wouldn't be late because they're till August 1st before incurring a late fee, and then writing any of this into the purchase and sales agreement. And agreeing to, you know,
To reimburse.
reimburse at that point.
That would probably be the best way to go.
I agree. I think that would be the only way I would be comfortable voting without some further information to confirm that we know for sure what we do have the right to waive. So that really would be the only one that I would be comfortable doing right now without having more time and more information to figure this all out. And we did have a conversation, gosh, it was like a year ago or so, about another property where there was like waiving of the taxes, and we talked then about having some sort of standards and creating some sort of guideline for when the town does this and when the town doesn't, because it's sort of like a shot in the dark, right? So if somebody asks, then we consider it, but that doesn't give us consistency, and we didn't do anything with that at that time in terms of making some sort of statement about what, or checklist or guidelines for what would constitute justifiable waive of taxes, whether it's waiving completely or delaying or what have you. So yeah, I'm with John on this, and like you said, Erica, too, it seems to be the safest bet would be to have them write it into the sale to be reimbursed.
Yeah, I agree. I understand it, and we are taking a risk just as much as they are with them holding off on selling the property so that the town can acquire it. But if we were to waive the tax obligation on this piece of property, it's property that we expect to take ownership of as a town, and that seems a little self-serving. So if it serves us, we'd be willing, that's the precedence I see. If it serves us, we're willing to do that. But the average taxpayer, where does their request go? And do we really want to open that door there? I think some of these statutes are there for a reason. And having, in my opinion, no set concrete town determined criteria for these sorts of things, or at least a discussion by the current Board of Selectmen, I think it's a little bit of a Pandora's box. And just which way is the wind blowing today, whether or not we were to grant someone a waiver. So I would, we can formalize that in a motion.
Is that our
Is
motion
that
or is that
right? Is that
theirs? But is that the job of
right?
the purchasing body to write that into their agreement?
I see it as their job to write it in the agreement, so that's why I put that to us. Do we feel like there's action for us to take, or just give them the general direction that we want to see them put that in the sales? And when I say the Conservation Commission, it's the Conservation Commission working with the town to purchase the land. So
Erica?
yes, Carol.
I believe that it's not, that the Conservation Commission is only an advisory commission. We have no power to put together an agreement of sale. And that therefore the responsibility really rests with the Board of Selectmen, nor has our commission taken a formal stand on this, because we understand that the responsibility for dealing with tax abatements rests with the Board of Selectmen.
So from the town side, it will be I, if it's done between now and the end of any term I serve, to sign said agreement. So if the consensus of this board is that we included in that sales agreement while working in conjunction with the Conservation Commission to develop that, we will include it in there and take no formal action as a board.
Okay.
What I'm hearing from you all? Okay. I want to thank you all for your input. It's valuable, especially as you've been here through multiple purchases like this. I've seen these. Again, I appreciate the family's willingness to hang in there, knowing that the town wants to purchase the land and include it in all of the adjoining land. Right now, it's tough to get to out there on Mason Road. It's admired by many, especially during COVID for sure, but I don't recommend anybody going out to that closed road. All right.
Noted.
Moving forward, item D is call of the town meeting. I move Town of Willington, notice and warning special town meeting. The electors of the town of Willington and all persons who are entitled to vote in town meeting on the matters mentioned in the following warning are hereby warned and notified to meet in town meeting at the Old Town Hall, 11 Common Road, Willington, at 7 PM on Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021, for the following purpose. Item 1, to see if the townspeople, on the recommendation of the Board of Finance, will authorize the appropriation of $60,000 from the Open Space Fund for the costs associated with the purchase of the Talmadge Estate property on Mason Road, including survey and legal fees. Item 2, to see if the townspeople, on the recommendation of the Board of Finance, will authorize the appropriation of $101,000 from the reserve fund to be used for the purchase of the Talmadge Estate property on Mason Road. Item 3, to see if the townspeople, on the recommendation of the Board of Finance, will authorize the appropriation of $123,500 from the American Rescue Plan Fund for the purpose of air conditioning replacement at the senior center, $35,000, remote and hybrid meeting town electronic equipment, $28,500, TOB basement cleaning and concrete, $57,500, and TOB purifiers, $2,500. Dated at Willington, this 19th day of July, 2021, of Willington Board of Selectmen. Is there a second?
Second?
Whew, it's always a breath. All right, now discussion. This will be our first fully in-person town meeting since COVID. While we have held the last 2 meetings in the hybrid method, there is no language after June 30th to allow us to take a vote on said meetings. So there was no language. There is discussion about moving forward in that direction, but this will be a fully in-person meeting. So masks will not be required, but encouraged for anyone who felt that they needed them for any reason. And we'll be back at the Old Town Hall where we haven't been in some time. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, I will ask for a roll call vote.
Moritz,
Aye.
Wojciechowski,
Aye.
Blessington.
Aye.
Motion carries. I look forward to seeing folks in person. All right, I'm going to ask you each to sign this before you leave. Next item is present to speak. Is there anyone in the room or on the call who would like to speak? If so, raise your hands, unmute yourself, identify yourself for the record. Yes, Kathy.
Hi, Kathy Demers, 48 Mason Road, the famous road today. My husband and I have lived on the road for 38 years. We've never seen a problem with that culvert before. And we thank Public Works and all the folks that came out to work on that. We have seen washouts on the sides of the road in the past. There certainly is a continuing problem there. I know you made mention of some concern in the past about people wanting to keep it a dirt road or a gravel road. I can tell you that we were part of a commission or a committee that was appointed by the Board of Selectmen at the time to look at gravel roads at the time. And some of the reasons, just so you know, about Mason Road, that people were not in favor really of having it paved is because it's quite narrow. And there was a concern about people picking up and speeding on the road. It also has some scenic value as well. There were a lot of stone walls and so on. So that's just some background and history. And what I would like to ask is if Public Works and the Board of Selectmen decide to consider paving the road, that they do engage some of the residents on the road as well in that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else present to speak? You do have a couple people in the room, which is why I keep looking to them. I don't think they want to speak. All right. You always have an opportunity to speak at the beginning and end of our meetings. And as always, you can send a communication, phone call, email to the Selectmen's office. Good and welfare. All right, turned my notes over. I have a couple of things. One, food share will be this Wednesday. from 11 to 11:30 here at the town office building. As always, COVID information can be found at portal.ct.gov/coronavirus. I'll be nobody's favorite person when I remind you that tax bills will be due without interest by August 2nd. Janice, if you're still on the phone, correct me, because August 1st is a Sunday. Is that correct?
Correct. August 2nd is the last day to pay without penalty.
So it needs to be in our office by August 2nd or subject to interest. So yes, there's that. Wednesdays in the park concert series. Weather has not been great outside, but last Wednesday was a full-on concert like we've seen in the past. There's a lot of water out there, but if the weather holds and you want to enjoy a good time with your family, concerts in the park at River Road from 6:30 to 8:30 on Wednesdays through August 18th. As always, if you can, please support our small businesses and restaurants. I had a resident in my office on Friday who made a point of stopping in to share her joy at our, not just our public works, but specifically Matt and Zig at the transfer station, and commend them on their helpfulness, their kindness, their cleanliness of the transfer station. We hear plenty of complaints. Folks are not shy to tell us when something is not working. It was really nice and important to her that she share what she thought was working. So I wanted to share that. I shared that with Troy and Zig when I saw him at the transfer station this weekend. And so thank you to them and want to share those things. I really, really want to thank our public works. They have been working almost 2 weeks straight. They're working 4 10-hour days during the summer, so they have had Fridays off, but they've worked the last 2 weekends. And I know to some residents, it seems as though it's a waste of our money, but it's only because of public safety that they're out there on what will be their days off. No one wants to give them more time off than we do. They work really hard for us, and so I want to thank them and Troy, and thank our EMS workers for coming out when we call and being there to monitor the roads so that everyone here is safe. And I appreciate all of the work that they do. Any good and welfare selectmen? No? John? Okay. With that, I would make a motion to adjourn at 7:33.
Second.
Seconded by John. It's a non-debatable matter. Any, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you all for joining us. I'm gonna stop